Welcome back to Eat Sleep Boxing Repeats YouTube channel. Delighted to be joined by Elliot and Greg for this week's weekly boxing preview. Gents, thanks for joining me. We were excited to be looking forward to Virgil Ortiz versus Michael McKinson, which was supposed to be only a couple of days away now. However, this fight has fallen through due to an illness to Ortiz, so we obviously wish him well. So we moved to one of the other main events of the weekend, which is of course Sonny Edwards against Mohamed Waseem. Edwards is defending his IBF world title back in Dubai. I think that's where he fought his last fight as well. I think it will be on via Pro Bellum, which I know they've just done a deal with Discovery Plus. So like credit where credit's due. Sonny Edwards, he's a world champion, talented boxer. From what you guys have seen about Mohamed Waseem, we know the flyweight division maybe isn't the most invested division in the sport, but I'll go to Greg first. Have you got any kind of thoughts on how much of a challenge this is going to be to Sonny Edwards, really, mate?
Yeah, I think I've seen previously that I don't think either of them like each other, which I suppose isn't a surprise. I'm not sure there's many people Sonny Edwards likes, but I've seen like a bit of beef that they've had on Twitter, and I think that Mohamed Waseem really fancied the fight a year or so ago when it was being spoken about. I think when you get fights where there's a little bit of a rivalry, it makes the fight harder because one guy, they've got that almost embarrassment factor where they really don't want to lose. So I think it'll be an intriguing fight. You know how skilled Sonny Edwards is, regardless of your thoughts of him, he's a skilled fighter. He knows how to change angles really well. So I think it will be entertaining. I think Mohamed Waseem will push the fight, but Sonny Edwards maybe should just be a little bit too skilled for him.
Yeah, absolutely. We know that Waseem has only got, I think he's got a record of 12-1. That one loss has come to Mithelane, which of course Sonny Edwards beat to win his world title. From my record of that fight, Edwards won the vast majority of the rounds against Mithelane. I think he won 10, 11 of the rounds potentially. Whereas Waseem, just lost on points to Mithelane a couple of years ago. Elliot, do you agree with Greg? Do you see kind of Edwards winning this fight? How much of a challenge compared to like the other fights that Sonny Edwards has had? How much of a challenge do you think this is going to be for him?
I agree with Greg. I think Sonny Edwards will have too much for him. Frankly, I think we've seen, like you say, he's 12 wins, 8 knockouts. But then that Mithelane fight, I suppose, is a shared opponent that they've got. I mean, I know he was older when he fought Edwards. He was 38. I think he was 35 when he fought Waseem. But you look at it, I still expect Sonny Edwards to have too much. I still expect him to win wide. I mean, looking at his record, I mean, he's fought undefeated fighters before. I just think he'll have too much, frankly, for Mohamed Waseem. I think Waseem's record, you're looking at, he's got Robert Barrera or something. He's probably the only name that looks okay on paper. I just think, I think Edwards have too much for him. Wide UD win, in my opinion.
Fair enough. And then, all being well on Saturday night, we'll see if that fight against Julio Cesar Martinez can be made later this year. We shall see. Moving on to we're going to talk about one of the undercard fights as well. Elliot, take it over to you now.
Okay, so I've picked Gray versus McKenna. Give me a little run up at this, lads. I think if you look at the records, obviously for Gray 26-1, McKenna 22-2-1. You're looking at it on paper, going, "Oh, this might be a close match." But let me just dispel that notion right here. So I think actually. I think this is maybe one for the betting show, really, and looking to bet on this Prograis knockout early, simply for the fact that I think this is a big mismatch. But looking at the fighters that Prograis beaten, looking at players, people like Abel Ramos, took Dennis Ugar 12, beat Omar Figueroa, KO'd Aaron Herrera, went 10 with Jesse Vargas, KO'd him in the first round, KO's against Ndongo, beat Terry Flanagan, came close against Josh Taylor. And you look at someone like Tyrone McKenna's CV, essentially, and you've lost to Hara Davis, lost Jack Catterall. Not necessarily a bad loss. We stand with Jack Carroll. Lost to Mohamed Mimoun as well. Got a poor decision. Well, he won that fight, but got a decision, really. So I think looking at this, it looks to be a substantial mismatch, which I expect for Gray to win via KO relatively easily. But I want to ping this over to you because I've been accused by several Irish commentators in the past of being a bit biased against McKenna. So I want to ping this over to you guys and say, do you agree with me, or do you think that there's actually intrigue and this will be closer? And I'm going to come to you, Elliot Stott, first.
I think it's a mismatch. I rate Prograis highly. I think that was an extremely close fight he had against Josh Taylor. And looking forward to seeing him fight again. Actually, I'm a fan of just Prograis. Tyrone McKenna, I think he's still a good fighter. He's just, I think Progray's a former world champion who will probably become world champion again. Tyrone McKenna, I think probably not, but Tyrone McKenna's you'd hope he's gonna turn up and it's gonna give the best points of his career, and we'll see what happens. But rate Progray highly, and I expect stoppage in the first half of the fight. That's what my prediction would be. That's what I expect to happen.
Greg, I'm going to come to you and I'll ask again. Obviously, do you see that coming the same way? But also, I'm going to ask you just to elaborate on: do you think, what level do you think McKenna is essentially at? What level can he reach? And can you kind of give us a bit of an understanding of how you think, if there's any way you can have success against Progray, how he could possibly do
that? Yeah. So it's difficult to say McKenna's level because he's always kind of fought guys who are all over the place between Southern area level and fringe world title level. There's never been a consistent build. He's either went too far or he's went back the way too much. I think he could challenge for the European title. I think he's got a European title in him. I don't know if he would win it or not, but I could see him going to somewhere like Italy and fighting a champion and giving a good account of himself and it being tight, but I don't think it's world level. I don't think it's close to being world level, if I'm being honest. I just think the style that he's got, it's not a style that lasts at world level. If you go forward and you throw hard shots but you don't move your head, I think you're asking for trouble. And he seems to be very one-dimensional in doing that, although I do think he is incredibly tough. Looking at the fight, I find it difficult to disagree with you guys. I can totally understand where you're coming from, but what I always look at when I'm doing a prediction video is guys' form coming into the fight and also what strengths the other guy has. If we're looking at this, Progray hasn't been greatly active. He's getting older and McKenna's got quite a good chin. Let's not forget, I mean, have we ever seen him really been bundled over? And, but if I was a betting man, which I am, I think you've got to kind of fancy Progray around about the middle stages, I reckon. But it wouldn't surprise me if Progray didn't look really great at first. Nothing to do with McKenna looking great, but McKenna's going to have that fear factor, Elliot. He's going to go in there. He's gave it the big one on Twitter, hasn't he? He's called out Progray. He's not going to go in there and just let himself fold in around. And Progray, as I say, he's been inactive. So it's an interesting fight. But to answer your question, I think, yeah, Progray win. And I'd be surprised if it goes much beyond the second half of the fight.
Thank you very much, Greg. I'm going to pass you back to Elliot Stock. We're looking at another one that's gone under the radar, aren't we now? And I'm pass you back to Elliot to talk us through it.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks, Elliot. Yeah, so really interested in looking forward to the fight. Looking forward to getting your opinions on this one as well. Hamza Shiraz, who had a controversial fight against Bradley Skeet last time out, against the very tough and game Jez Smith. They're coming to blows at Wembley Arena this Saturday on the Frank Warren BT Sports show. Very much under the radar. I think Jez Smith, don't know if you guys saw his last fight against Bradley Ray. Fantastic fight. I think Jez Smith would admit he's not, he's not the most talented technical boxer in the world, but he'll fight anyone. And he's in entertaining fights, basically. Hamza Shiraz, I think someone who's been tipped as kind of a future world prospect. I think he kind of fought Bradley Skeet and maybe didn't do as well as people thought he would do. And I think a lot of people had him down at the time of the stoppage, and don't need to go over kind of the controversial ending. I think we all know how that happened and whether he should have been disqualified, should have been in no contests, what happened after the fight, etc. I'm going to ask both you guys for A, a prediction, and B, what's kind of how Hamza Shiraz is going to approach this fight, i.e. is he going to try and be extra careful to make sure he abides by the rules this time? And is that, could he kind of, how much of a favourite is he? Obviously, he is the favourite, he is the world prospect, but yeah, how much of a favourite is he against Jez Smith? Greg, go. I'll go back to you, mate. What are your thoughts on this fight?
I see a statement, Elliot. I think he's going to go in. I think he's going to absolutely smash Jez Smith to bits. I think it will be maybe a middle rounds stoppage, but I just think every fighter is an off night. Bradley Skeet is a very awkward fighter. I think Hamza Shiraz hits hard. I just see him going for it. I don't think there's going to be any messing about and overthinking. You've got to leave that fight in the past. You can't overthink it. I just see him breaking him down very quickly, very early, and then I think maybe round out the middle stages stopping him.
Yeah, it's interesting. I know that Jess Smith, he is very tough, but at the same time, he has been stopped a couple of times in his career, possibly not by major punches, to be honest with you. Elliot, do you agree with Greg? Do you think we can see a statement victory from Hamza Shiraz this weekend?
I think that's what he needs, to be perfectly honest. Yeah, I think looking at it, you're looking at Jess Smith as like you were saying, not the most talented necessarily, but almost one of those benchmark fighters that you sort of come up against at test level. I mean, obviously he lost to Antu, didn't he? Lost to Jarko. That good fight against Ray as well. But yeah, I think obviously he needs to win, but I think in ways he's found his level, right, where he is. Whereas Shiraz, I think, was poor against Skeet. Yeah, I watched that fight, had him down. But then the fight before was against Guria. he looked good in that fight. So you can sit there and go, well, like Greg said, maybe he had an off night. But equally, I think for him, this is a big fight for him in comparison to Jez Smith. I think he does need a statement, and I don't think he's going to come out and necessarily be cautious and feel it out. I think he needs to come out and look for a stoppage, frankly. Yeah. So I think he'll go for it as well. And we've seen he obviously carries power. Yeah, irrespective of the way the fight ended against Skeet was obviously poor, but he's still got power, obviously in his hand. So I think it's for him, he needs a statement victory. And I think that's what he'd be looking at.
Yeah,
Dog agreed.
No, yeah, Tim agrees. I think it's an interesting fight. Is, as we all know, kind of styles make fights, and maybe they kind of underestimated Skeet a few months ago. Skeet, in my opinion, he is actually quite a good boxer, a bit past his best, but he can actually box quite well. Whereas Jez Smith, not as much of a good boxer, but can fight and is very tough. And I think for that reason, I will agree with both of you. And as usual, we'll probably agree with Greg. I think this is a chance. It's a good opponent for Hamza Shiraz to make a statement and for people to forget about the fight against Bradley Skeet. But yeah, there we have it, gents. Three fights. Looking forward to another weekend of boxing. Again, shame that the big fight that we were all looking forward to has fallen through. We will see what happens with that one in the future. But yeah, thanks so much for joining me.
Thanks, mate.